Started.
Right.
And just sort of a quick disclaimer, we are recording this session for the folks that are unable to attend, because I think we're going to have a lot of really helpful information that we discuss throughout the call. So just want to kind of throw that out there. But Teresa is going to be kind enough to kick things off for us. So Teresa, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Well, first of all, thank you all for joining us. I couldn't be more excited than to have the opportunity to do this meeting jointly with your stake. We often suggest that an advisor call one or the other of us to follow up. And so it's great that, I'm here with Robin and with the other members of the First Affirmative team. So we're all here to answer your questions and also to bring you up to date on the work we've been doing along with your stake to make the VADIS workflow and process better. So I am going to share my screen. And there we go. And just get started. So today we're going to be talking about the ways that you can optimize your VADIS workflow. So I know that everybody has a different way of interacting with their clients, but this, in our view, is the best way for you to optimize the VADIS workflow. And Robin will be running through the discussion on the VADIS workflow, and then I'll come back and talk to you about the enhancements that we've been working together to make. So, brief introduction, VADIS advisor workflow, portfolio construction enhancements, and then we're looking forward to your feedback, suggestions, questions. If you have questions as we're going along, please put them into the chat. We will be trying to answer those as we go along, and the others we will sort of aggregate for the end of the presentation. So, as all of you know, I begin every First Affirmative presentation the same way, by telling you that at First Affirmative, our objective is singular. We produce and deliver outcome-oriented sustainable investment solutions to meet our clients' individual financial and impact goals. We've been doing that for more than 30 years, and we have taken a very innovative approach to sustainable, responsible, and impact investing through the years. You can see that this chart ends in 2021. And what we've been working on over the past 2 years is the technology and the knowledge that will allow us to move VADIS forward from here. So that is what we've been doing. First Affirmative and VADIS and your stake, working together, we believe that we can accelerate mass customization. We can increase the scale of values-based sustainable investing. And that will contribute significantly to the growth of responsible investing going forward. And we will expand access to high-quality financial advice to a broader range of investors as we move forward. We will continue to help investors align their financial goals with their personal values and with their wider societal impact. So those are the things that we are working toward. At this point, I'm going to turn over to Robin, who will talk to you about the current VADIS workflow and how we what we will be doing going forward. So, Robin.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Teresa. And I also want to mention, we've been so excited and fortunate to, work with First Affirmative to have this workflow and to really help in our efforts to just try and make the world a better place. And I think that everyone here on this call is in that same boat. So I can, confidently say that we are all in really great company today. So as Teresa mentioned, and this is, certainly going to be something that you all have seen, but going through the VADIS workflow and just kind of stopping here and there and pointing out, some little tips or tricks as we go through this workflow. So I went ahead and already created, the new journey, and with some very basic information. I'm just going to go on here. Peanut is one of my dogs. She is the littlest one. So I haven't used her yet as a client. I think that the folks that demo the VADIS workflow besides me come up, you'll also confirm that you got to come up with some creative names. Anyway, so I've got my clients' names in here, email address, primary account value does need to be input in there. And then of course, selecting the appropriate custodian. Had this account been, below the 250,000, then, Apex, great option. You can also add an additional account. I want to also just pause here to say, when you add an additional account, the values questionnaire that we're going to go through in the next step, those values are, applied to this account as well. So just kind of something to keep in mind. Maybe you want to do a separate client for someone who may have, this is kind of the route I want to go for this account. In my joint account with my spouse, this is the route that I want to go, or kind of these are the values we'd like to incorporate. We'll just say that today it's only the one account for this client. And we'll take the behavioral values questionnaire, and I'll kind of go through this quickly since y'all have probably seen this, but you'll get to see kind of how I would answer it. So as the advisor, I'm going through this with my client. I go out of my way to reduce my environmental footprint. I like to think so. Companies should pay workers a living wage, even if that means employing fewer people. Human lives are more important than animal lives. I got a lot of dogs that this one is a little hard to answer, so I'm going to stay neutral. I go out of my way to avoid buying products linked to forced labor. I like to think that I do, but I could probably do better. So neutral on that one. Prisons effectively to deter crime. I don't necessarily agree with that. I seek out women-led businesses when buying products. I think I could do a better job. I avoid eating meat. Yep. A strong military leads to a safer world. This one is always the crux for me, since I am affiliated with the military through my spouse. So I always by default choose neutral. I choose Switzerland on that one. Companies should construct their hiring processes to achieve greater gender diversity. Society must take urgent action to avoid environmental catastrophe. Yep. Society should extend extra opportunities to historically oppressed minorities. Companies should refuse to cooperate with governments to censor political speech. Stay neutral on that one. I would or already do own a gun. Gotta agree on that one. I would choose or have chosen to serve on an organization's ethics committee. I could do that. I avoid eating unhealthy fast food. Again, I try my best, but there's always room for improvement, I think. I would discourage a close friend from using tobacco. Yes. And then that's it. So we've taken the client through the behavioral values questionnaire. And I think this is a point where a lot of the folks on the call can probably relate to, okay, we captured these do we need to kind of fine tune this or go through this a little bit easier in our conversations with those clients? Are there any particular companies that they want to definitely include in their portfolio or definitely exclude for one reason or another? Whether that's for values alignment, or I already own a lot of Tesla, so I don't think that I should have it in this portfolio. Or including, I definitely want to have Apple in this portfolio. So I can see here that my client, Peanut, matched to Health Defender, Planet Protector, Racial Equity Advocate, Fair Player, Friend of Animals. So they kind of matched with a lot, but this is definitely within the sort of normal or average range that we see. Folks taking this behavioral values questionnaire typically tend to match with between 3 and 5 of these sort of pre-curated value sets. So in the Health Defender category, you can use the little drop down to see those particular individual metrics within that value or that category. So in the Health Defender category, we have tobacco producer exposure, avoiding that, health and safety violations, access to nutrition, Planet Protector. And so each of these, you can just use kind of that drop down to see what those focus areas are going to be. And again, through kind of the conversations with the client, is there anything in here that may not be incorporated with your values? And this would be, maybe this is great. This is a really great start. This is, these are my values. You don't need to do the fine tuning, but I like to go in here and take a look, especially for the meter metric. Even if I don't want to add or introduce any other metrics to the client, I like to take a look at this to make sure I'm within the green. So I will say that this meter metric, which we added some time ago, is very, very helpful in seeing whether the full set of values for my client, Peanut, is sort of in that green, good to go range, so that the portfolio sort of construction side of it is built sort of, it has that structural integrity. If we start to see that we're going in the yellow, in the red, that's definitely sort of a caution. Hey, there may be some conflicting metrics or some conflicting, value. And you'll want to talk with your client about how should we prioritize these. It's really, it can get really difficult when there's a lot of things that people really care about and they're passionate about, but you also want to make sure that the portfolio isn't sort of lopsided one way or the other, so that a portfolio can really be built and delivered to the client to incorporate, the values and the performance and the goals, just sort of the overall goals of the client. So looking at this here, I'm in the green. So that's great. But maybe my client just, in the conversation, they said, I didn't see that women on boards are on there. I want to add that in. Or I want to add in, I want to get rid of, bribery, corruption, fraud violations, or any of these sort of categories you can go through. So these are our 5 different categories: accountability, environment, equal opportunity, health, human rights. And clicking that applied button just gives me a quick view. Also over here, listing out all of the metrics, those individual metrics to make up the complete customized value set for this client. So if I were to add anything additional in here, which I grabbed a couple, let me just see if I can do, maybe another one, and animal testing. Oh, I'm starting to get in the green. So maybe I need to back up here. It looks like this, I might have some either conflicting metrics, or there's just a really, really broad metric or two in there that is throwing out a lot of companies to be invested in that may not really be the intention of the client. And I'll go back and talk about some of those metrics here towards the end, because I think that is really important to, kind of be able to see some of those metrics that do have, conflicts, whether it's, this is inclusionary, this is exclusionary, and now they're butting heads. What do I do? Really great opportunity to talk with the client. We need to prioritize some things, and let's really go through this and see what you value. So I'm going to take off the animal testing and just leave on meat producer exposure and non-medical animal testing, kind of like that. Maybe the bribery, corruption, and fraud. Now I'm getting back into the green, so that's great. Those were the ones that I had, chosen to add here. So I'm going to save this value set. I've already put in the specific ticker symbols of the companies I want to include and exclude. Going on to the next page is that risk selection. And I think this is another page where I think there is some confusion from folks clicking this button here, Orion Risk Intelligence Questionnaire. I'm going to click it because I don't have access to that product. But so for us, it's really just a link to get you in there to take the risk questionnaire. But let's pretend I did. After the client takes that risk assessment, you're going to end up with kind of a score. And so you're going to come back into, so we were here, coming back into the VADIS workflow on that tab and selecting the appropriate benchmark. And so we're going to say that this client was aggressive.
Oh, sorry. Can you just go back for 1 second, Robin?
Yep.
If you could just hover over the yes.
Yep.
And it will, this is really important because I've been asked this question many, many times. So basically, this is the way that the Orion Risk Intelligence Questionnaire lines up with the categories, the risks, the risk levels within VADIS. So if you say, well, my client got, a 55 on the risk score, I don't know where that puts the client. Well, if you look at this little drop down, you'll see that puts the client right at the moderate level. So that's the way that you would look at this and understand how to do it. And if you need more detail, we have a PDF that aligns the Orion Risk Intelligence score with our risk level and a description of that. So we can send that PDF over to you, but it's just really important to know about this drop down.
Excellent. Thank you for pointing that out. I think for me, it's, I click on this one, but the little information here, and throughout the Your Stake site, we do have those little purple eyes, and it's basically a little window pop-up that you'll see, and giving you additional detail, additional information. So I'm going to say that from the risk questionnaire that my client took, Peanut is aggressive. And I'm going to go to the next page. And this is just the review page. A great opportunity to take a look, kind of giving you a final view of, okay, the name is right, email looks good, primary account size. There is a custom value set for this particular client that was produced from taking the values questionnaire, and then doing any fine tuning. And then also laid out is the exclusions and inclusions. Maybe this is a great way, because I have done this before, where I flipped the exclusion and inclusion. And so I just want to go back, change that. So just start your basic review page, and then submitting the portfolio submits all of those preferences, portfolio optimization to First Affirmative. So now is where the First Affirmative team gets all of this information that you've gone through to start building your customized portfolio tailored specifically for this client.
So Michelle, do you have a question?
Oh,
yeah, I do. So this is just kind of minor thing, but I was wondering, so the benchmarks, the first affirmative bias aggressive, the naming of it, is there a way that maybe I change it? Because I felt like, when I generate the report, it feels like, and we are comparing the portfolio with the first affirmative bias. It doesn't say benchmark, so it looks like, it's like actual first affirmative bias portfolio. It's just a naming thing. It's not major, but I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. Maybe have a benchmark in there. It would be helpful to clarify what we are comparing to.
I see.
Does that make
Yeah, so the name of
Yeah.
this having
Yeah.
sort of benchmark in here.
Right. Instead of first affirmative bias, it looks like it's like a portfolio, like first affirmative bias created. So it's
Gotcha.
more, right?
Mhm.
So,
It just
so
was a-
maybe
just a
even
thought.
maybe changing the word category on the upper left to benchmark would be a good idea, because that would at least you know show you again that it's the benchmark that we're looking at. But we labeled these because they are in the Your Stake system, so they have to have First Affirmative in front of them. And that's the reason that they're labeled the way they are.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But that's great feedback, and that's what we like hearing too, is the feedback that we get. You guys are the ones that are going through this with the end client. You're sort of the boots on the ground, and it's fantastic. So this goes for anyone when you have feedback or anything about this sort of values the workflow, please send it to us so we can take it into consideration as we make improvements and everything. So I guess with that, maybe we can, I'll pass this back over to Teresa to talk about some exciting kind of updates, kind of give everyone some things to look forward to.
Okay.
So I'll stop sharing here.
And I will share again. Okay, I'm going to assume that you are now seeing my screen.
Yep, looks good.
So this next section is, since it's almost Labor Day weekend, I decided that we would call this What I Did on My Summer Vacation. So both First Affirmative and Your Stake, both our teams have been hard at work building the VADIS of the future to help you with your interactions with clients. And the first grouping of things that are under construction is something that the Your Stake team has been developing. And this is specifically designed to enhance client assessment and interaction. And you've all heard a lot about artificial intelligence in 2023, and you definitely don't want to hear me talk about artificial intelligence because I am not the technical person that Gabe or Patrick or any of the brilliant engineers on the Your Stake team are. So we will have another meeting to go through all of this. But many people think that artificial intelligence will revolutionize wealth management. And at First Affirmative, we're very fortunate because we've been working with that extraordinary Your Stake team. And we're soon going to introduce the enhancements to the VADIS client assessment and interaction processes that will enable you to attract new clients, retain existing ones, and become better, faster, and smarter advisors. And what we've been doing is collaborating on this so that a lot of the things that we've been talking about through Salesforce cases or one-on-one conversations in terms of the portfolios we've been building and why they look the way they do will be built into this artificial intelligence platform. So it's not that we're giving you ChatGPT, which, you know, has data that is as recent as September 2021, as they told me in one inquiry. This is the most up-to-date data, and it's based on a lot of input from the First Affirmative team, so that you're getting really good information. And what you'll be able to do is the technology will make it so that you're able to quickly review a prospect's existing portfolio and tax situation. So any type of document will be able to be scanned into this AI platform, and the portfolio will be you can analyze the portfolio from both the financial and impact perspectives by loading it in. It's very, very cool. I'm going to guess most of you haven't seen anything like this. Then you'll be able to assess the client's financial goals and values objectives using the platform that we just saw. But in addition to being able to do that, you'll be able to more easily respond to client questions by simply typing them in to the platform. And then we've been working together to create a proposal so that you can deliver to your client almost immediately a proposal, as opposed to us going back and forth over and over again. So that's what the Your Stake team has been working on, and we will be able to show that to you, if not before, then at the conference. So please be at our presentation on Sunday evening when we'll be able to walk you through all of the enhancements that we're making. Which brings me to the things that we here at First Affirmative have been working on and working with Your Stake to incorporate into the VADIS workflow. And that is a couple of things that many of you have heard me talk about in the past. We are going to be changing or upgrading the metric meter. So everyone should be looking at the metric meter. It should always be green when you submit a portfolio to us. What we're doing now is raising the metric meter score for the metrics that are very tech heavy, because those tend to be the ones that eliminate the most large cap companies from the investment universe. And you've all gotten those Salesforce comments from me saying your portfolio or your client's portfolio has a significant SMID bias. Yesterday we had a portfolio that was 51% small and mid cap stocks, which is way too high. And that bias is something that we've been working on these metrics. We've been working to reduce using this metric meter so that we don't have to go back and forth with 3 or 4 or even more than that different iterations of a portfolio. We want to get it right from your client's values and financial perspective. We want to get it right the first time. So we are raising the score for tech-heavy metrics. These include data privacy violations, intensity, digital rights freedom of expression score, digital rights governance score. So anything that has the word digital in it is something that will have a higher metric meter score going forward. The second thing that we're doing is removing the threshold level choice, because that kind of blows up the metric meter. And we can go into more detail on this if you would like. We are removing non-intensity metrics. So you've probably noticed that certain metrics like loans to fossil fuel companies have both intensity metrics and metrics that do not have the word intensity in them. We only want to use intensity metrics. And the reason for that is an intensity metric allows you to look at the value. So here, the loans that are being made to fossil fuel companies relative to something else, like the size of the company. And it's very important that you use those intensity metrics. So we're going to make it so that you must use the intensity metrics. We are going to look at women on boards, and most of the people on this in this webinar have gotten the message from me. Please substitute best workplaces for women on boards. Mm-hmm. The women on boards metric has so many companies in it that it is either marginally positive or negative in every single Your Stake report. And we can't do anything to make it positive. So I would urge you to make that substitution until we make the adjustments in the Your Stake platform to remove women on boards and have best workplaces for women as the key metric there. Next, we want to remove political spending disclosure score. And the reason for that, and Caitlin has done a really good job on this, the reason for that is in our proxy voting guidelines, we always vote for on the issues that are associated with disclosing political spending. And the political spending disclosure score metric typically comes out negative on that Your Stake report, but there are corporate actions that can be taken, and the proxy voting is really the way to reflect that in your client's desires. And finally, one that many of us have talked about, strong climate commitments. This is a company raising its hand and saying, I've made a strong commitment to climate. And many of the companies on that list are eliminated for other reasons. So for example, many of the energy companies have made strong climate commitments, and many of you do not want energy companies in your portfolio. And as a result, this metric will be negative on that Your Stake report. We are going to add an inclusion metric meter, which will allow me not to go back to you and say you have 6 inclusion categories. Can you please eliminate 2? Mm-hmm. You'll be able to make that choice looking at that inclusion metric meter. We are going to be adding the account type to the VADIS workflow. And this was a really good suggestion from several people. So adding, is it an IRA? Is it a taxable account? What type of account is it? And finally, we're going to be allowing you to start at the values picker as opposed to in the values questionnaire. So we're making a number of enhancements that will allow us to deliver portfolios that are structurally sound and that meet your clients' values objectives the first time around as opposed to the third or fourth time around. Next, Rich has been working on a spreadsheet and printable PDF that includes all your stake metrics. And you may or may not be able to read what's currently on my screen, but this spreadsheet or the printable version includes the following: a description of the metric, whether it is an inclusion or exclusion category, the number of companies flagged by that metric, and as you can see on this page, whether it's labeled a difficult metric, the rationale for including it in the difficult category. There are things that are labeled difficult for various reasons. Animal exploitation, as you can see there, has almost 900 companies flagged if you check animal exploitation as an exclusion category. Others don't have a lot of categories in them, but they exclude many large cap companies in the tech sector. And this is one of the key things that is leading to that small and mid cap bias. So if you choose not to have any of the large cap technology companies in your portfolio, you can do that. But we want to sort of serve up a warning that that's what's happening with these metrics. So everyone on this call, we will send you the PDF that Rich created. And if you have any questions on specific metrics, we can either answer them here or we can do that later. So at this point, we are open to your questions, suggestions, and feedback. And I have not been monitoring the the chat. So Robin, do we have any specific questions that we can answer?
Yeah, I thought I would, maybe kick this off too with some of the questions that I tend to hear from the folks that do have VADIS enabled and are putting clients through it. So I went ahead and just made a quick little just a value set of some of those metrics so I can talk about them and you can kind of see as well. So I'm just going to take over the screen.
Want to share your screen?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll do that.
Okay.
Just real quickly here. So like I mentioned, I just kind of wanted to kick off, with, just discussing some of the common questions that I get when folks are asking kind of the differences between metrics, what do they mean? And by the way, that that list that Rich put together, fantastic. That's going to be so helpful. I think what a great resource to have that. And so going forward, I get some folks with the question or, hey, my meter, my values meter metric is in the red or in the yellow. Are there some duplicate metrics in here, or what are some suggestions? Because this is the client, this was sort of the client's value. And we do have some metrics that are very broad. And by that, I mean, they are going to throw out a lot of companies. And so in particular, prison industry exposure. That's going to throw out a lot of companies, especially the folks that are maybe supplying those basic human needs to the folks that are there. So that may be something that you can turn off, the prison, just the overall exposure, and dial in a little bit more. So I'm okay with, the suppliers, because those people, they're still human. They need to eat. They need to be clothed, that sort of thing. But where I don't want to have my exposure are those funders, the banks, the folks that are funding them, the ones that have labor involvement, and operators. Another one is, like Teresa mentioned, the animal exploitation. This is, as you saw kind of on that list, it's going to throw out a lot of companies, because within animal exploitation is testing, non-medical animal testing, meat production exposure, dairy production exposure, leather, hide, fur involvement. I will say that this leather, hide, fur involvement, it's even going to cast into some of, you know, some of your auto makers, because they've got leather seats, leather steering wheel. So I think this is also another opportunity to, you know, talk with the client about, you know, what some of these mean and what that means. If we say, okay, absolutely no animal exploitation, that to me says this is the client's number one thing. But it's going to throw out a lot. So how deep is that value running? Is it more
And
along?
Robin, you might want to click on that and just, you know, look at the list of companies that is involved in that.
Oh,
I mean, it's just
yeah.
massive.
Yes, I can do that in another
Right, sorry.
view. Nope, that's okay. But yeah, it's massive. There's, I mean, anybody that's involved, like I just said, leather, fur, hide involvement, meat production, those meat producer companies are going to be, you know, your Tysons, and the likes of those. So a lot of companies get sort of thrown out because of that. If it's more of, you know, for me, I just don't want to see, you know, animal testing, non-medical animal testing going on in meat production. So, you know, narrowing that down a little bit so it's not so broad. Also, the sort of all of the digital rights that I know Teresa already discussed. Those are kind of those tricky ones where we look to see, you know, what each of these is, and some of these are going to throw out a lot of your large cap companies. So just wanted to kind of come in here and let you know there are some metrics where there's very broad ones, and then there's metrics that are much more narrow that might be more appropriate, especially if you're coming up against the meter metric, you know, being yellow, just not being in the green. And with that, Teresa, any sort of common questions too that you've been hearing?
Yeah, I
the
think
chat?
one that we've gotten a lot recently is prison industry exposure.
Mhm.
And there, one of the things that we found is that so prison industry exposure means that you're excluding all companies that sell anything to prisons, that are involved in prisons in any way. And since the likes of Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, etc., all provide something to prisons, you will be taking out a lot of those large cap companies if you incorporate that prison industry exposure metric. We are suggesting instead that you choose prison funders, prison labor involvement, and prison operators, which means that you're not, you know, taking a company out of the investment universe because a small fraction of their revenues are associated with prisons. Now, if that's what you would like, that's fine. But it's important to just think through what the implications of that are for the portfolio. Another thing that we've seen, and this is especially for the advisors who are converting affirmative ESG portfolios to VADIS portfolios. In affirmative ESG, as you might recall, you could choose as many metrics as you wanted, but we didn't have the opportunity to sort of prove to you in the end that all of those metrics were reflected in your portfolio as we're doing now. So basically what we're doing here is building you a portfolio that incorporates all of these metrics in it, and then in a sense, proving to you that we've done that by delivering the Your Stake report. With affirmative ESG, we didn't have the second part of that. So what we've seen is that many clients have chosen things like anti-pharma. So they've taken all the pharmaceutical companies out of their portfolio. And they've also chosen pro stem cells, pro birth control, abortion. So basically things that are pharmaceutical companies. So pharmaceutical companies manufacture all of those things. And as a result, you're going to get negative metrics if you sort of offset them. And that's what we've seen with a number of, especially with affirmative ESG portfolios that are converting to VADIS. So just be aware of that. We have noted it in the cases where it's come up, but it is fairly common, that you see anti-pharma and pro-contraceptives, and you can't have both positive. So those are just a few of the things that we've been seeing. But the real key here is we will be upgrading the metric meter, and we would urge you to pay attention to that metric meter once the upgrade is made, especially. And it will allow you to avoid that small and mid-cap bias that we've seen in a number of portfolios.
Teresa and Robin, before you move forward, Jim
Yeah,
Frazen has a question and a suggestion.
Okay.
great.
Could you unmute him or whatever you need to do?
I got
Sure.
it. I got it. So,
Hi, Jim.
hi everybody. I have a concern about the metric meter. The metric meter looks like it has a similar format to many progress bars, and my thought would be to use a different visual format for it, like a speedometer or something, or a pie chart, or pie, or something like that, because I think it's like, I think it could be a little confusing. I mean, it's useful, but I think just the visual aspect of it could be a little confusing for some people. So that was my question that I had earlier. My suggestion also was I think the meter needs an enhancement.
Oh, that's great feedback. Really great. We'll be sure to take it to the team, because as Teresa mentioned, we are, making some changes, and, that's why we were really excited to get in front of all of you today, because we value your feedback and your suggestions. And if you've been with us long enough, you've seen that we've taken a lot of those and incorporated them throughout the site. So we definitely love hearing all the feedback, the good, the bad, the ugly, so that we can make this the best that it can be, and really useful to make your time, to make you more efficient, and at the end of the day, make this very user-friendly.
So I don't know if there are other questions,
Yeah.
maybe that we haven't answered.
Yeah.
So if you have a question, either raise your hand or type it in the chat, and we would be happy to answer it. If not, we will send the PDF to all of the participants here that have all of those metrics in it, and the explanation, the definition, the number of companies, and all of that information, just so that you have it at your fingertips when you're talking to your clients. So other questions?
Teresa, it looks like Michael and Rich took care of most of the chat.
Yeah.
Looks like
So I think just opening it for everybody other than there, I think is a good idea.
Yeah, Chris Burns has a question. Go.
Yeah, great.
Hi, so if people do not have a problem with the mega cap stocks, and we included those at the beginning, would that have a significant impact on the metric meter then?
So that's not going to impact the including those stocks as specific company inclusions will not have an impact on the metric meter, because the metric meter measures only the things that you're choosing. What it will have an impact on, and Chris, that's why we made that suggestion earlier today or yesterday, is in that SMID allocation. So we did rerun that particular portfolio, and I appreciate your asking this question because it's really important. So the portfolio that Chris is talking about, or that we ran late yesterday and early today, is a portfolio that excluded all of the quote Magnificent Seven unquote, and many, many more large cap companies. As a result, it had a massive small and mid cap overweight / allocation. And we suggested making those Magnificent Seven specific company inclusions. And that did bring down the SMID allocation. So that is something that we can do. If your client doesn't mind owning those companies, we can sort of override the exclusions by making those specific company inclusions, and that will reduce the small and mid cap allocation, and it will also reduce the tracking error of the portfolio. It will marginally reduce the certain categories on the Your Stake report, but what we've seen to date is that it doesn't do that to such a degree that it would be offensive to the clients who chose those particular metrics. So as long as you have clients that are not averse to holding the large cap tech companies, we can make those specific company inclusions.
Robin, if you could you go back to a share screen? Some folks on the chat would like to see where the list of excluded companies was that we didn't get into. And then also there was another question in the chat. I believe some folks would like to see Richard's spreadsheet that was discussed.
Yep. So this was prison industry exposure. And sorry, I hit one moment here. Just refreshing this real quick.
Sorry about that. We cleared our desk.
Nope, that's great. Nope. I kind of forgot about this. So bear with me.
And Rich, do you have that spreadsheet up?
I do. I'm just saving another version of the PDF, so it closed down real quick, but it's going to open right back up.
Okay.
I'll have it up in just a second.
Yep, this page is loading, and so actually, as this loads,
Well,
I'm just going to show I was just going to say I can share my screen now, and I'm just sharing kind of an example here, because my account is not tied to First Affirmative. This is just going to be slightly different, but the question was, where's that list of all of the companies that would get excluded from a portfolio for that prison industry exposure? So again, pretend that this is the starting universe. Now, I just chose the S&P 500 because it was quick and easy to load, but pretend that you can go in here and grab that universe. But in the S&P 500, that prison industry exposure, I'm flagging the companies within this, and I think it's a smaller universe than what you guys start with for building a portfolio, but it's going to list out those companies. So as Teresa mentioned, Amazon gets flagged for exclusion. So this company, so Amazon would get thrown out because it has a tiny bit of exposure here. And you can click on these, Wells Fargo, one of the lenders. You might be throwing out Costco as well. So you can go to the company screener to see some of those companies that get thrown out.
And if you look
And
on
the
that,
universe that should be, sorry, the universe that should be loaded to look at the VADIS, which companies are going to be excluded in the VADIS universe, is the VADIS, it's first affirmative VADIS universe. There is a screen, a universe in there that is specific to VADIS. It has 3,000 something companies in it. And it will show you all the companies that are being excluded by that particular metric.
Yeah.
Also, in the printable that we'll be sending out, it does say exactly how many companies are flagged by each category, so that can be helpful as well.
Yeah. That's
And I actually have that open now if you want me to share it.
Oh, sure. Let me stop this.
Okay. I just have to share the right screen.
While this is
All of
pulling
you
up,
seeing a spreadsheet.
not yet. Here we go.
Perfect.
Looks good, Rich.
Okay. So we went through all of the different categories. And this isn't the printable, this is everything that we've done. The printable is right here. And the printable will have, let me just go to the top. The metric, what number metric it is, whether it's applicable to the VADIS universe, the your stake category it falls under, the your stake subcategory, your stake's description, the data source, whether it's an inclusion or exclusion, whether it's a switch or a threshold, whether it's a difficult category, and I'll go into more about that in a second, and the number of companies flagged. Also included in the printable are the difficult screens. Let me just get out of page view. There we go. And with the difficult screens page, it will have an explanation of why that is a difficult threshold to use. For instance, women on boards, it's a massive metric. It excludes we exclude companies with less than 10% of women on their board, but it still excludes a massive amount of companies at higher levels and is a massive metric. Or say for animal exploitation, it's another massive metric, and it also excludes the entire pharmaceutical industry. CEO pay, another massive metric that includes over 1,100 companies, if set to 100%. And we're just unable to really put a dent in that. And it's got explanations for each of these, just varying, whether it's whether there's a large amount of exclusions for the large cap, or there's just a large amount of exclusions in general. And that will be included with the spreadsheet as well.
Rich, there's a question. What does VADIS rating refer to?
Oh, that's going to be the rating in. We're not going to be sending that out with the printable, but that's the rating that we're going to be giving it in the metric meter. So for difficult companies, the highest a rating can get is 4. And that's going to be, we're going to be scoring the metrics based on difficulty of use, essentially. And those are the ratings that we gave to the metric meter levels, which will be likely, green is going to be less than 16. Yellow will be between 16 and 20, the scores. And red will be over 21. And then for the inclusions, it'll be less than 4 will be green. Yellow will be between 4 and 6, and red will be over 7. So that's what the ratings all mean in the that you guys are seeing all the way down this list. Let's see if I can find
Rich, we had a question on whether the rating scores will be on the spreadsheet. On the printable, I guess.
I can add them if that's okay with Teresa. Is that okay? You're muted.
I think we need to finalize them before we add them to the printable version. So
Okay.
let us, we're putting all of this into the Your Stake platform. Once we have it in the platform and we run a few portfolios, we will add that to the spreadsheet. If you want the preliminary, we can, because we're getting a lot of messages that this is very useful. So we can just put the word preliminary above the score, because it's going to be subject to change as we put all of this information into the Your Stake platform and start running portfolios with it.
Right.
Okay, Rich?
Yep. And also another helpful page of this spreadsheet that I might send out just as a spreadsheet is the entire VADIS universe downloaded with the flags for each company. And you can see exactly where each company gets flagged throughout the entire 156 categories at our levels. And it's a really, really interesting spreadsheet because it shows you exactly where Apple is excluded in the 13 exclusion categories it falls under, or Microsoft in the 14 exclusion categories it falls under, or Google in the 20 exclusion categories it falls under. So this is a real deep dive into our system, but I'm sure it would be helpful to some of you to really understand what's going on behind the scenes of VADIS. So if anybody does want this spreadsheet, I'd be happy to send it out.
Excellent. I think with that, it looks like we have kind of come up on time here. It looks, Rich, I'm getting a lot of yes. We want to geek out on the data.
I like Jim Vorlacher's response.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish I could see the chat right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Stop sharing.
I think too with that, we've kind of come up, just gone over a little bit on time, but we appreciate everyone's taking the chance to come on here with us. I know that I've really enjoyed doing this, with Teresa and Rich and the whole, First Affirmative team. Hopefully we'll do more of these in the future, but this thank you to everyone that attended for really making this a success and offering us really valuable feedback too.
Yep. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy Labor Day weekend. We really appreciate you being here. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us, and we'd be happy to work with you so that you can even understand all of this data even more. So anyway, thank you.
And please come to the conference.
Of course.
Yes, and come to the conference. Come see all of us at the conference. That'd be great.
Yep.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.